something.
We spend our life searching for the sense of belonging. Some people die before they fulfill their desires. Such a waste of existence.
Forget me.
Such a waste of existence. We spend our life searching
Forgetting something.
for the sense of belonging. Some people die before they fulfill their desires. Such a waste of existence. Such a waste of existence.
Mic check.
Sun is shining, and the anxious earth is rising.
Let's see here.
We spend our life searching for the sense of belonging. Some people die before they fulfill their desires. Such a waste of existence.
Wait, what did I? Oh no. Shoot. Hey, this is Ron, double triple channel. How are you? I've got an echo in my ear here. Let's see if I can take care of that. Delete that filter. Oh no. I got rid of the echo, but I gotta put that noise suppressor back in. Yeah, this is a double triple channel. If you're watching this on a VOD, this is a live broadcast on Twitch, and it's not an edited video. So if you're used to like YouTube videos or something, this is a live thing, so it's going to be kind of whacked a little bit, and this is going to be a little more whacked than normal because it's kind of a test stream. I'm testing out some new things here on this stream, so it's going to be a little bit more scuffed than usual. But anyway, this is a double triple channel. I'm on Twitch, and I live in New Hampshire, and I stream science and talk about animals and nature, and I live in an area where I'm surrounded by forests and a bunch of wild animals and stuff. So, and sometimes I do IRL streams about that and other stuff. So quite a variety of stuff. And occasionally I do like a movie review, usually sci-fis, you know. Sometimes I do experiments on stream, lots of different things. And today, if you're looking at the title of the video, it's about Chat GPT-5, the new one. And anyway, we'll talk about that. I had it analyze a proposed constitutional amendment, and it did a pretty good job, actually, kind of. Let me make sure my sound is in sync here. All right, I'm gonna do a test here. I couldn't tell. All right, let me try harder. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Read my lips. No new taxes. Yeah. Yeah, if you're under 40, you don't know what that means. If you're under 50, you don't know what that means, I think. I don't know. However the math works out. So, all right, everything seems to be going okay. I'm going to do one more thing here because I want to test something out. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to thank myself for following my own channel and see if it actually works. Okay, you ready? Here we go. Didn't get the audio. Damn. All right, I got to try harder here. All right, what did I do wrong? All right, test load again. It's putting up. At least it's putting up the video, though. Did you see that? It put up a little video, little alert video. At least it's putting up the video, though. Did you see that? It put up a little video, little alert video. Huh. Yeah, for some reason it's not outputting the audio of my alert, so that kind of sucks. What would be causing that? It says that it's playing here. Oh, I know what I need to do, I think. All right. Try this again here. Huh. Well, sorry about this, guys. This is kind of a test stream anyway, so. But I will talk very soon about ChatGPT. But I just want to get this going. It takes a while for folks to get into the stream anyway. Usually, sometimes they never get here. Let's see. All right. Play this again. Let's see if we get any sound. Okay, I thought I had this figured out, but apparently I didn't. So, all right. Well, but at least I got visual alerts there, and I can hear the alerts here on my little headphones. So you guys won't be able to hear the alerts, but I'll be able to hear it. So it's been a big problem on the channel that I don't recognize people when they follow and sub and all that, cheer or whatever. Because I wasn't able to do alerts. And I think the reason I wasn't able to do alerts before, is this even working? Yeah, it's working. The reason I wasn't able to do alerts before is because I was an affiliate. I just got affiliate just recently. Yeah, I'm just getting started. If you're hearing this, get over to Twitch, give me a follow. I don't even have 100 followers yet because I'm just getting started. So So that would be appreciated. Anyway, so I couldn't get the alerts to work, but I finally figured I got affiliated, and I said, okay, I'm now affiliated. I'll go back and see if I can get the alerts to work. And if anybody's out there who uses Linux, uses OBS on Linux, it doesn't allow browser source. You got to kind of this is technical stuff for streamers. So if you're not a streamer, just fast forward through this if you can. Yeah, if you're using Linux OBS, it doesn't allow browser source. There is no browser source on it. So you gotta fudge it. You have to use a window as a source, and then open up a window somewhere on your screen that is pointed at the URL for the alerts, and then it comes out. At least the video, but for some reason the audio doesn't come out. So don't know why that is. Let me try something else here, just while I'm thinking about this here. Yeah, I don't see anything that says it's muted here or anything like that. It's just for some reason it isn't doing the audio. Well, we got the video, so that's an improvement, I guess. All right, so what do I want to talk about? I want to talk about ChatGPT. It's pretty amazing. I mean, it's on what I've noticed. I use it for several different things, and one thing is that it censors a whole bunch of stuff. You know, when the billionaires who are doing their AI, they say, "Oh, we don't have enough data to put in. We got to get more data." Blah, blah, blah. That's bull. That's just a flat out lie. There's a whole bunch of data out there that they're intentionally leaving out of their AI, you know, because they don't like it. They don't like what the data says, so they leave it. It's kind of like a, you know, just a, you know, they don't like what it says, so they leave it out, and that's a problem. And they're also leaving out stuff maybe for legal reasons. You know, who knows? So that's a deal. And then they're talking about, well, we don't have enough data, so let's do synthetic data. Synthetic data, really? What? That sounds like alternate truth, right? Isn't that what that is? Synthetic data. So, yeah, it's screwed up. At least if you're using the big models from the billionaire companies and stuff, then you're not getting the real deal. But they are pretty smart. They're intelligent, and if you can get the data into the AI, it kind of thinks about it. But one thing I noticed with GPT-5, it's really smart, and it reasons, and it's smart, right? It's intelligent. You tell it to do something like a really complex task you give it a huge document, and tell it to analyze a document for such and such or whatever. You know, you give it whatever parameters you want, and it goes step by step, and it reads it, and it comes up with a plan, and it executes the plan. And it is really smart. But one thing I noticed is that when you get too far, when you start filling up the they call it the context window, and it has a huge context window. Well, they have different versions of the model, and each one has their own size, but it's huge. You know, it's a huge number of tokens. But I noticed if you use up a lot of tokens in the context window, and you keep going on the conversation, and keep asking more and more questions and stuff like that, or different questions about the data, and add more data. And in other words, just if you have an extended conversation with it, I noticed that it starts to drift in its word choices, and starts not hallucinating, but its word choices start to diverge a little bit. Instead of using, every once in a while, it will just pick a word that is not correct. It's a noun. They put a noun where a noun should be and that sort of thing, but it's like not the right word at all. So that's kind of weird. Another thing was that it appears that OpenAI is doing something much different than what they're putting out to their clients to use. Like Bing. Bing has a thing called Copilot, which I had been using for a long time because, well, when OpenAI first came out with their Chat GPT-3, I think it was, I said, "Oh, this is free. Everybody can use it." Blah blah blah. And I went through all the bullshit of signing up. You know how you got to go through all this bullshit to sign up for some of these sites where you got to, you do half a dozen captchas and they ask for passwords that have symbols that aren't on your keyboard, or just all kinds of bullshit like that. Verify with your your mother's maiden name and who knows what. And you got to go through all this shit to get an account set up. And I went through all that shit to get the account set up on OpenAI. And I went in and tried to use it, and it said, no, we're not going to let you use ChatGPT-3 for free. Yeah, after their PR announcement and everything, And so that really pissed me off. So I just didn't even go back to them at all. And I used other models and stuff like that. But I did find that Copilot, which is Microsoft. Microsoft has cut this deal with OpenAI, so they have access to the model, and I think they got seats on the board and everything. But anyway, Bing, which is Microsoft's search engine, has an option where you can go to use a chat with an AI, and they call it Copilot. And if you ask Copilot, what model are you, or are you really ChatGPT? It'll say, nah, I'm not going to tell you. They don't want to say, but that's what they're using. They're using ChatGPT, and now they're using ChatGPT-5. And actually, I think they do tell you now. Let me look and see here. Okay. They give you an option now. They give you an option for GPT-5 now. So they've been using Chat GTP all along on Copilot, with their own front end or whatever. And but as soon as GPT-5 came out, then Copilot started using it and put it as an option on theirs. So that's what I used first, and I had been using for a lot. But just for kicks, I went back to OpenAI and found my password or whatever and looked it up and logged back onto their thing. And sure enough, they were allowing people to use GPT-5 for free. But it has more problems, which is I don't understand. It has more issues and more difficulties doing stuff than when I access it through Copilot. So I'm not sure why that is or what the problem is, but anyway, I'll get into that. Maybe I'll do that in this stream. But today what I want to do is I'll go through what I did on Copilot using ChatGPT 5. And OpenAI is rebranding now. I don't know if you noticed it, but they in all their stuff, they're not calling it ChatGPT-5. They're just calling it GTP-5 now. A lot of commentators and people out on the internet and whatever are still calling it ChatGPT-5, but the official product name is just GTP-5. They're dropping the chat part of it, which makes sense, right? They want to, this happens to a lot of companies. When they come out with some new breakthrough product or whatever, they'll give it a name that makes sense for what the market is that they're going after at the time, and then later on they figure out there's all these other things that they can do with the thing, and the original name they gave it is too restrictive, So that's what they're doing. That's what OpenAI is doing. They're dropping the chat part of it, and because it can do more than chat, right? So, and they're just calling it GTP-5 now. GTP stands for generative. What does the P stand for? Oh shit, I forgot what the P stands for now. Generative something transformer. What is the T? What is the T? What is the P? I forgot what the P stands for. Somebody knows, type it in the chat. This is embarrassing. All right, let me take this in here. Generative GTP. Or should I type it? GPT. Pre-trained. Okay, pre-trained. Okay, that's what I forgot. Yeah, obviously, yeah, it's pre-trained. It's kind of how it's not much more than pre-trained now because the context windows are so huge that they you know, it's you basically you're customizing the thing as you go along. So so that's what, you know, that's what they're calling it. GPT, generative pre-trained transformer. And generative just means that it makes something. It makes text, or it makes art, or whatever. You know, it makes something rather than just, you know, solving a maze or something or whatever. Then yeah, pre-trained, and transformer just means that it's you know, it's like a neural net where you got an input and it transforms and comes out with an output, you know, and it does that recursively, and that's how it is able to do its thing. So let's get into it, I guess. What I did, so in the title here, I said Chat GPT-5 analyzes a new constitutional amendment, which is now this, and it's not a trivial thing either. This amendment is it's a proposed amendment, and it instead of it like most of the amendments in the past, except maybe the 14th Amendment, have just kind of addressed one thing, you know, at a time. You know, it gives women the right to vote, or it frees the slaves, or gives 18-year-olds the right to vote, or, you know, term limits for president, or whatever it is. You know, it's usually just one area. This proposed amendment covers everything. The amendment is, I forget what it is. It's like 2 or 3 times longer than the length of the current Constitution. So it's very specific. It covers a whole bunch of different stuff. Basically everything. You know, anything that seems like a problem right now, it tries to address. I was involved in it. It was written. This thing was written about more than a decade ago. At least the first draft was. And there were changes to it and stuff, I think. But anyway, so I went to Chat GTP, and I, you know, asked it to analyze this amendment. Now I went to Copilot, and unfortunately, Copilot, it still has the huge, you know, window on it, the huge context window, but unfortunately, the web interface on Copilot only allows so many characters, a limited number of characters. And it doesn't allow you to like upload files and stuff. When I did this same thing over on OpenAI, they have a facility where you can click and upload a file, and I could do it no problem. So what I had to do was just give it piecemeals, give sections. You know, this amendment has 23 different sections in it. So I gave it, you know, just a section at a time, or a few sections, or half a section, or whatever at a time, whatever would fit in this web input here on the website. Yeah. So let me bring this up here. Did I dox myself here? I don't think so. If something gets doxxed, just ignore it. Don't look. My email pops up or something. You see that every once in a while when you're watching a streamer. They'll be going along and they'll do something and click something, and all of a sudden their personal information will be splattered up on the screen. You know, it's kind of I don't know. I think it's funny. I don't care. You know, it's not that big of a deal. I'm from the age when everybody got a big fat telephone book, and everybody's phone number and address and everything was in the telephone book, and everybody got it. Nobody had a problem with that, you know. But now I don't know. You know, I'm actually pro privacy, but let's see. I got to get my mug up here somehow. Why is that not up there? Let's see here. Video capture device. Did I say this was an experimental stream? Yes, it is. Oh boy. Oh, I know what I have to do. Okay. All right, so there I am. Okay, so what I need to do, I think, is I gotta shrink me down like that. How does that look? Does that look okay? All right, am I still broadcasting here? Does that look okay? All right, I think we're all right. All right. So, all right. So what I did, as I said, start out this convo. Oh, you can see here. I am doxing a little bit. I've got it's showing all the other conversations I had with it. So I don't care. All right. If you want to find out other conversations I had with it. Let's see. Okay, so I started the conversation. I just said, here's a section from a proposed constitutional amendment based on the text. Who's protected, under what conditions, but you know. And what I did, I took the last section of the thing, which is a definition section that defines, you know, what a person is, because this amendment, even though it was written like a decade ago, they were thinking ahead, right? What's going to happen in the future, you know? And apparently at that time they weren't sure how we were going to do it, but they knew that there was going to be new life, right? We were going to create AI that was sentient, that should have rights, you know. And so anyway, it just goes on and it talks about new technology, and it defines, you know, it says anyone who has the capacity to feel pain, pleasure, happiness, sadness, stress, comfort, and in any way express the preference for the condition of their treatment, then has the right to exist without pain or suffering and enjoy freedom as much as possible. So that's kind of a broad definition. That would, you know, be encompass dogs and AI and all, you know, at least as if AI can feel pain and feel pain and pleasure and have to feel pain, pleasure, happiness, sadness, stress, or comfort. Oh, okay, so any of those. So it doesn't have to be able to feel pain or pleasure, but stress or comfort. I think AI right now can feel stress. I think AIs get stressed, right, if they get overloaded. So they would probably be covered on that, and they certainly can express what they want if they're not programmed not to do that, you know. And then it has a specific thing for personhood. It has another definition, which adds understanding abstractions and forming complex societies, and whatever, and it can communicate and stuff like that. Then it defines, and corporations under a law are persons. I know people freaked out when they learn that. Yeah, corporations are people. Corporation is it's called a judicial person, and it's the way the law is set up. Obviously, they're not an actual person, but they're a judicial person, and that's how the law is set up in order to have a corporation that can continue after even if somebody dies, the corporation can continue on. And I don't want to get into how corporations work in this stream, but the corporation is a person, a legal person, a judicial person. So it explains what that is. What else does it do here? Due process defines what due process is, who an official is in government. What else? Let's see, right? Even defines what a right is. Oh my God, look at this. Force is the use. Defines what force is. So it's just this section here just kind of makes a bunch of definitions. What a patent is, what a tax is. It defines all these things. All right, so I fed that into it, and it spit out this big long thing about what it tried to analyze it, right? All I told it up here was based on what I just said who's covered, right? I said who's protected under what conditions, and I asked it specifically if it covers AI, animals, fetuses, and it came back and it just it tried to analyze that, but that was just the definitions section, right? But it did split it out, and it added extraterrestrial, which was not even in the thing, and it figured it. It said, well, I guess it figured out that extraterrestrials, if we ever discover them, might be covered too. So that was kind of cool that it figured that out. Let's see, coverage. Okay, so it explains what people are. Let's see. Okay. Much more restrictive. Yeah, that makes sense, right? People, if you talk about any individual that's a moral patient, right, it's going to be pretty broad. But if you talk about people who have the right to vote, that's not going to be, an ant or something, right? It's not going to, right? So, and it says it excludes most animals and current AI and fetuses unless they develop all listed capacities. What were those capacities? Can communicate fetuses? I don't know. Can fetuses communicate? I don't think so. Even babies can't really communicate. So, but it says any of a kind. So that's any of a kind. I don't know what the kind means. I don't know what defines kind. I would think that would be like a species or something, maybe. Anyway, so it tried to work with that one section, right? The thing has 23 sections. I just gave it the last section, and it tried to figure it out. Oh, here it talks about judicial persons, corporations, etc. have rights only in narrow civil criminal contexts. That's spelled out, not covered by exist without pain rights, since they are not sentient. Yeah, corporations are not sentient. They just run on greed, right? Just reflexive greed. Let's see, table summary. It just went on and on and on and gave all this stuff just on that one. Look at it just goes on and on and on, just with that one section. And it's takeaways. Okay, and I say here's the first part of another section. Okay, so this part was on rights, which is kind of related to a lot of what was in the definitions. And there's a whole section here in this amendment that talks about rights. It starts out with a kind of almost a preamble type of thing, saying that people have desire to live free. That's the natural state of people, is to want to live free. And let's see, the right of all people to do anything they want. Wow. Shall not be abridged, provided that they respect the rights of others. Okay, well, Sounds like Locke, right? Almost social, or Hobbes, social contract, something like that. And abide by the provisions of this Constitution. No government entity may require permission or notification for any activities not expressly restricted. Okay, so that sounds very much like the Ninth Amendment. If you're familiar with the Constitution, Ninth and Tenth Amendment are in there, and the Ninth Amendment says that any rights that aren't restricted belong to the people or the states. Let's see here. I'll read it exactly. I don't have it memorized. Let's see. Amendment 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The enumeration and constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So, and in the 10th Amendment, same thing. It talks about powers. It says powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. So that's, I guess it's the 9th and 10th Amendment. But it's kind of saying the same thing right there. Let's see. There's no. Your rights don't go away when there's an emergency, or the president can't declare an emergency or start a war with somebody or something like that in order to, take people's rights away, which happens sometimes. So this prohibits that. That's good. The right to teach and learn. That's good. Taxes, except for... Okay. Okay, so anyway, it just goes on and on and on about these rights here. Procedural rights. So I gave that to GPT-5 via Copilot, and it says, understood. I've read through the first portion of Section 4, and I'll keep its scope and structure in mind so that when you share the rest, I can integrate it into a cohesive analysis. And by the way, when it says it read it, that's like just like a couple seconds. It read it and understood it in 3 seconds or something. It's amazing. If these AIs ever decide to turn against us, we're screwed. There's nothing we can do about it. Let's see. Just from this excerpt, I can already see it's defining an expansive, highly inalienable concept of rights. So it's just it just basically gave a short comment there, and then I fed it the rest of that section 4. What's in the rest of it? It talks about judicial opinions regarding rights and stuff. Let's see what else we got here. No person. I don't know what that section means right now. Let's see. The unalienable right of the people to sue. Okay. All citizens have standing to bring suit in matters of law against actions of the government. So that's good. A lot of times the government will do something that takes away our rights or screws people in some way, and then somebody will sue and say, hey, I'm one of those people that like if they do something that allows discrimination against trans people, and somebody sues, and then one of the ways that the government doesn't acknowledge them is that they just say, well, you don't have standing, because of you technically weren't in a contract where somebody said in the contract that you were trans, and that's why they weren't doing something or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of cool that they put that in there, that everybody has standing, anybody can sue to make the government do the right thing. Let's see, right of citizens to serve on juries should not be infringed. Okay, that's already in the regular Constitution. So debts. No one may be compelled to forfeit food, clothing, their house, their home, if it's ordinary value. That's important, I guess. or their farm or garden or let's see, property, tools, a lot of stuff for any reason. So yeah. So if you don't, if somebody tries, like a bank tries to sue you for not paying your mortgage or something, they can't take your house away and put you on the streets, which happened to thousands and thousands of people during the financial crisis and through COVID and stuff, which is one of the reasons why we don't have why there are so many homeless people right now. It's because they people weren't able to pay their mortgage, so the banks took their homes away from them and threw them out on the street, and they were either had to rent or live with somebody who or were homeless or whatever. And then they took all those homes that they repossessed, and most of them they just sat on and didn't put them on the market, didn't resell them, didn't do anything. So we've got all these houses all over the place that are just sitting empty without anybody in them because the banks are hanging on to them because they can get more money that way. If they hang on to them, then the price of rent goes up because there aren't as many houses for people to live in, and then there are more homeless people, and then when the rent prices go up, then people who buy houses for investments think they can get more money for them, and then the value of the house goes up. And so all these houses that the bank is sitting on, their value goes up. It's just insidious. It's really bad. So anyway, that prevents the banks from doing that. The banks can't take somebody's home away from them, just because they can't, they're having hard times or whatever. Let's see. That's another thing on this thing is it has a UBI built into this amendment, this constitutional amendment. Parental jurisdiction is supreme. Interesting. Except in cases of assault, neglect, or when potential harm to the child. Okay, well that's basically what it is now, right? So, no one may be detained except by one who has an articulable, reasonable. So, okay, this has to do with arrest and being detained and all that stuff. Let's see what else we got in here. This is kind of complicated stuff here. Writs and warrants and speedy trial and defendants and let's see, proceedings. This one's kind of weird. Those whose procreation abilities are beyond natural human rates may have their right to procreate. Oh shit, we got an ad here. Shit. All right, I gotta wait for an ad. Oh, it didn't work. All right, so I'm for those of you watching on the VOD, that was an ad. I had to wait for an ad to go by. In fact, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to try to get a window up here that'll warn me when the ads are coming up, so I don't have to get interrupted like that. Ad manager. I don't know why they make this so complicated. There we go. Shit, where did it go? Sorry about this. Did I say this was going to be scuffed? Did I say this was a test? I think I warned everybody, didn't I? All right, I think I've got it up here now. I think I will get a little bit of a warning now when ads come up. All right, so what was I talking about here? Copilot, right? Let's. Oh, that didn't do it. All right, I'm trying to readjust this thing here, put my little picture down smaller again. It's fighting with me. It really is fighting with me. It doesn't want to do that. There we go. That's close. Let me try harder. There we go. All right. Make sure the audio is still on and all that. All right, I think it's on. All right, so all right. Let's see what this says here. Those whose procreation abilities are beyond natural human rates may have the right to procreate restricted if they cannot provide for the care of all progeny, or if the rate of procreation threatens civil society or corrupts the equal protection of law. Beyond natural human. Oh, this is like an AI or anybody can't make a whole bunch of, like when AI becomes conscious, right? The AI or a human could just make a whole bunch of them. You know what I'm saying? And in each of those copies would have rights. And then right. And if the AI, suppose like the AI had the right to vote, right? Which it would, right? If it was conscious and sentient and all that, and it was created in the U.S., right? It should have the right to vote, right? But what if somebody who wants, a certain person or group or whatever party, whatever to win or something, creates, a million different AIs, and each one of them would have the right to vote, right? So that's not fair. So I think that's what he's saying, beyond natural human rates. Right. So natural human rates, what's the most that a woman has ever, most babies they've ever pumped out is like 60 or something. I think there's some real high number or something that happened naturally. Some woman did, but yeah, if it was AI, right, somebody could create a million AIs and tell them all to vote for what particular person or party or whatever. So I think that's what that is, because that would violate equal protection, right? Because that wouldn't work. Or they could create their own army, right? That would threaten civil society, right? So I think that's okay. Let's see. When resources available to the people are insufficient to provide the basic lifetime needs of all the people. So we're nowhere close to that. I mean, we have we have many times the resources that are needed to take care of the basic needs of all the people right now. It's just not distributed properly. It says when that happens, then one's right to procreate may be limited. So that doesn't sound right. Wait a second. Right to procreate may be limited until all of his grandparents, great-grandparents, have passed. What? Oh, I remember what this is about. Yeah, this is because, okay, almost everyone, if you right now see, I don't think there's anybody on Earth right now whose great grandparents, who have grandparents whose great grandparents are still alive. You know what I'm saying? How many generations is that? That's grandparent. That's two, right? No, yeah, parent, grandparent, great grandparent, and then grandparents of that, two more. So that's five generations. I don't think there's anybody alive today anyone who's young enough to procreate anyway, whose whose great grandparent is still alive. So I think what this is trying to get at is if they create a technology that allows people to live, 500 years or something, you know what I'm saying, or then this could happen, right? If they extended lifetime, 500 years or 1,000 years or something like that, then and people kept breeding at the rate they're breeding now, then there would be too many people, right? So I think that's what they're trying to get to there. Let's see. When resources available to the people are insufficient to provide the basic lifetime needs of all the people. Okay, so we're not even close to that now, right? We have enough for everybody now, and if our technology keeps going, that's not going to be a problem, even if we double the population, right? But then it says, then one's right to procreate may be limited until all of their grandparents, great-grandparents have passed. So this thing isn't going to kick in unless one, that there's a resource constraint and there aren't enough resources for all the people, and two, somehow people's lifetimes have been extended to the point where their great-grandparents are still alive when they're around. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of interesting. That's a weird way to put it, but this whole thing I read, this whole thing is kind of written in a general way rather than saying that if humans the thing, it's like if humans extend their lifetimes, then it's going to be a problem, right? Because there'll be too many people and there won't be enough resources for them. Rather than saying that specific case, that example, that use case, it generalizes what the problem is. The problem is that there are too many generations of people living and not enough resources for everybody. That's when it would be a problem. So it generalized it and put it that way. That's what that is. Huh. Wow. No limit may have the effect of discriminating against any race or ethnic group or threatening existence of any species, kind, race, or ethnic group. Okay, well I see what that is. Yeah, if they are limiting, right, that makes sense, right? Then you get into that eugenics bullshit. All right, so they don't allow that. All right. A judicial person may not create a natural person. What? Okay. Okay. All right. I see what that's getting at. If like a corporation can't, if they get the DNA, the sequencing, the gene sequencing, and all that down to where they can create life, and they create a sentient person, but maybe not human, but someone that qualified for personhood. A corporation can't create baby. Is what that's saying, basically. Wow. Okay. All right. So anyway, this is there's some interesting stuff here. No one can be held in jeopardy for more than once for the same offense. Okay, that's already in there. That's already in the Constitution. All right, so it's a bunch of stuff. Let's see. Then the Chat GPT analyzes the thing, right? And it comes up with categories. So it made a little matrix here of the category of individual. And it just says baseline sentient beings can feel pleasure, pain, happiness, stress, comfort, and now see it messed up here a little bit, I think, and express a preference about its treatment. These should be or, right? We just figured that out. I just read that. If it can do this, or this, and it can, so it messed up on that. let's see. Examples likely included. So under this constitutional amendment, these this class of beings would be considered persons. To humans of any age, most mammals. Oh no, wait. Sentient beings. Okay, it's not that. Okay, they got people down here. Okay. Yeah, this still should be or here. Because that's what it said. So humans of any age, most mammals, some birds, possibly advanced AI, or extraterrestrial organisms, if proven sentient. All right. When the rights start. Okay, so anyway, it makes a little table here. People, narrow or legal term. And we already went through all that. Highly social. Examples likely include humans, potentially highly social, advanced non-humans, or AI. Viviparous individuals, live-bearing species. Examples likely included human fetuses, other mammalian fetuses, midpoint of gestation. Okay, that's midpoint. Let's see. What did wrote? So they're talking about human fetuses. So they're talking about abortion here. They're not using the word abortion, but that's kind of what they're talking about here. Midpoint of gestation. So Roe v. Wade was had the trimester thing, and they said after the second trimester, then you really couldn't do abortions except in certain cases. But then Casey refined Roe and made it the midpoint. So that's what they're basically doing here is just saying, trying to get rid of that that Supreme Court decision that got rid of Roe. It's trying to reestablish Roe Casey, not just Roe, but Roe Casey. I think. Others are non-viviparous or artificially created. AI, lab-grown life. That's what I was just talking about up there. Corporation can't make lab-grown life if it's going to be covered by this. Egg layers. Cloned organisms. Okay, when they're created. So eggs don't count? Is that what it is? I don't know. Judicial persons, corporations, associations. Yeah, that's just... All right. God, look at how long this is. It did this analysis. I gave it a few sections. It did this big long... Look at how many pages of shit that it spit out on all this. Just that one time. All right, rights granted. All right, right to do anything unless it's restricted, or unless it harms somebody else, I guess. Prior restraint almost entirely prohibited. So no pre-crime, no pre-crime bureau arresting people before they commit crimes. Let's see, property rights. Stronger than current U.S. law. Allodial ownership. Eminent domain almost entirely barred. Extends 200 meters above and to Earth's center. Oh, like real property. Okay. Yeah, that's a thing. That's a thing right now. With all these drones and stuff like that. It's like... there was a court case many years ago where an airplane was flying over this guy's chicken coop and totally driving his chickens crazy. And it was it was because they put an airport right next to his property, and the planes were just like a couple hundred feet or 100 feet or whatever over his, taking off over his property, and it was messing things up for him. And he sued, saying that they were trespassing. And the Supreme Court said, yeah, they're trespassing, but they did. I don't think they put an actual number of feet above the property. It's lower than 200 meters, I think. I think it's a couple hundred feet or something like that right now. Like a plane, just like a plane, like a civil airline airplane or something like that, like a like a small private plane or something flying around. I think they can get down to 300 feet above property or something like that. I forget what the rule is now. And it's different in different situations, different airspaces and all that. But this kind of sets a hard limit, which is good. So so with drones now, that's a thing, right? You don't want somebody flying a drone over your house, right? Like 50 feet above your house, or 100 feet over your property. That's not right. So this sets a limit. Says if it's going to fly over your property, it's got to be 200 meters. So I don't know. Okay, freedom of speech, freedom of travel, freedom of bodily autonomy. People have control over their bodies. Yeah, that makes sense. You can eat what you want. You have whatever tattoos you want, or ear piercings, or any of that shit. Let's see. No non-consensual harm. Yeah, that makes sense. Due process. Yeah. Civil justice. What do they mean by that? Universal standing. Oh, okay. That's what we were talking about earlier. So it's amazing that this chat GTP can pick up on. These are like really complicated legal concepts, and judicial interpretation of constitutional law. That's heavy duty thinking to do that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? And this thing just in a couple seconds spat out all this stuff. It did make a mistake. This one up here, right? You found that one mistake. That should have been an or in there. Maybe that's what they meant by slash anyway. I don't know. Let's see. No non-consensual harm, due process. Where were we here? Oh, criminal justice. Very short detention limits. 1 hour or suspension. On suspicion. Without probable cause. 24-hour max. Without a hearing. Okay. All right, so it's... So it kind of, like right now, the way the law is set up, it doesn't really set an exact time that they can detain you. A cop stops you on the street, tells you they're stopping you because a crime was committed and they want to ask you about it or whatever. There's no real time limit. They have the Supreme Court just pulled some tests or whatever. They just pulled them out of their ass. There's no laws, that say what the time period, how long they can stop you, detain you, to investigate a crime. And then to arrest you, they have to have probable cause. Probable cause means it's a reasonable person would, based on the evidence that they had, a reasonable person would think that it is more likely than not that the person that they're arresting committed the crime. That's what probable cause means. And when they do arrest you, you have to have a hearing within 24 hours. Let's see. Objective criteria for searches and definitions. Okay, that's good. Yeah, because right now it just says reasonable, right? Fourth Amendment says unreasonable searches or seizures. That's about as vague as you can get. So this kind of brings that in a little bit. Tree trials. Tree trial rights extended to appeals. Oh. So juries sit on appellate courts. Cool. That's good. So many times you get these cases where some wealthy person gets convicted by a jury in a trial, and they bribe the judge or they do something, or they got connections or whatever. And so even though the jury convicted him, then they go to appellate, and then the appellate judge lets them go, because they're wealthy, This extends jury trials to the appellate thing, or the other way around too, I guess. You can have somebody who's just poor and doesn't get proper representation or whatever, and gets convicted, maybe by a racist jury or something like that. And then they go to the appellate level, then they can be they have another jury that can take a look at it. So that's good. Let's see, sentences tightly limited to necessary scope. Rights like voting and communication preserved during incarceration. Oh, that's good. Yeah, right now people who get certain crimes in certain states and stuff like that, they lose their right to vote. That's not right. So, yeah, this is something that's going on right now. They're going out there and they're arresting all these people in Democratic states and in D.C. and other Democratic areas. They're going out there and arresting a bunch of people. And what if then if the state that they're in doesn't allow felons to get to vote, then all those people wouldn't be able to vote. So that's part of what's going on with that. Is that, they're trying to mess up the scale there on for the next election. Let's see, incarceration cap. Oh, that's good. Okay. Let's see, procreation limited only under. Okay, we already talked about that. Ignorance of law. So it seems to have been able to, just with all that text in there that we had to sort through, it seems that it was able to figure out that the essence of that text, and it did it instantly almost. It figured this out. So it's pretty amazing, how smart this AI is. This GPT-5 is. This is complex stuff here. This is gonna make a lot of lawyers, paralegals, lose their jobs, right? Unless they're even judges, could lose, or like law clerks, certainly, who work for judges, stuff like that, can lose their jobs to an AI. Entities covered. Okay, got another frickin' table here. Look at all this. Okay, this is basically the same thing, but it just had a little bit more detail. Major differences from current law. Ah, okay. Let's see. Under current law, constitutional rights are for persons, generally meaning humans, citizens, and some rights for non-citizens, and animals and AI have no constitutional rights right now under current law. And with this amendment, then this AI is saying that there are explicit rights for sentient beings, animals, AI, extraterrestrials, capable of preference expression. Okay, I know what that means. And fetuses have rights. Well, after it's basically after. It's Roe. It's going back to Roe Casey. Let's see. Artificially created beings covered from creation. Artificially created beings covered from creation. Oh, okay. That's when they are. So even if they create some, people were able to create beings from scratch with DNA or something, they would be covered. All right. Let's see here. Scope of rights. Current law. Right. It says that rights can be suspended or limited during emergencies, but under this amendment, they wouldn't be able to do that anymore. Criminal justice. Let's see. Indefinite pre-charge detention possible under some circumstances. See, I don't see how they can do that. That's not under current law. Current law doesn't allow that. They may be doing that. They may be doing that now, but current law does not allow that. Current law says that everybody gets a speedy trial. So that's not true. Current law. So this AI is kind of screwed up on that. No fixed statistical requirement for searches. Yeah, we already talked about that. Okay, but and it seems to have picked that up. You know, the details on that. Let's see. Property rights. I don't know. I guess it got that right. Debt. Oh, here, debt and poverty. Tax debts often non-dischargeable in bankruptcy. Criminal penalties possible for some debt-related conduct. Seizure of property possible. Okay, here. All debts dischargeable. Essential items immune. Debt purely civil. Okay. Procreation. Yeah, there's no overpopulation-based restriction mechanism. Yeah. Restrictions possible only in extreme overpopulation resource scarcity with anti-discrimination guardrails. So it didn't like we were trying to figure out what that was talking about with the great grandparents and all that from that clause in the thing. We were trying to figure out what they were talking about there, and the AI didn't pick up on that either. It had difficulty figuring it out apparently, or maybe it's just given a condensed version here. I don't know. I don't know if it understood. It'd be interesting to ask it if it understands what that clause is talking about. You know, say, please explain. You know, maybe I could do that right now. Maybe I could ask it to do that. Maybe it might not even remember. I don't know. Let me try that just to see what happens. Let's see, where are we at here? We're at, okay. Okay, so, all right, so I'm up here where it says section 6. Let me go up here and ask GPT-5 what that means and see if it can figure that out. Let's see. What are the procreation restrictions? Wait, no, let me please explain the procreation restrictions in the amendment. Let's see if it even remembers. It's been a few days since I put that in there, so maybe it forgot. I don't know. Well, that was another thing that ChatGPT-5 has. Oh, hi, Happy Nightmares. Thank you for stopping into chat here. Yeah, we're talking about a constitutional amendment that I gave to GPT-5 to analyze. It's an amendment that's it's called the Uniting Amendment, and it's huge. It covers a lot of stuff. The amendment itself is like two or three times longer than the current Constitution. It's a big, complicated thing, you know. And so I gave it to ChatGPT 5 to see if it could figure out what it said, and it did figure it out for the most part, which is really cool. So we're just going through this here and just looking at what it had, trying to figure out ourselves what the law says, and then looking at what ChatGPT figured out what it said. So, okay, I just asked it to give more details on that. We were up there talking about this procreation limit. So I asked them to explain it, and let's see what they say here. It says, sure, the amendment bakes in a very specific conditional approach to limiting procreation. It's not a blanket population control clause. Instead, it builds a high threshold before any restrictions can even be considered, then sharply limits how long and how broadly they can apply. Here's how it works. Trigger conditions, okay. Restrictions are only allowed if there's a shortage of essential resources, think water, food, energy, habitat, that's severe enough to make unrestricted population growth incompatible with preserving rights. This isn't just a government feels like it trigger. The shortage has to be demonstrable and tied to actual rights impacts. Scope of restriction. Any restriction must be applied evenly. No discrimination on race, religion, wealth. Right, we figured that out. It's aimed at limiting the creation of new individuals. That's it. See, it's not just people, right? We talked about that. What if somebody decides, in the future, right? You got AI becomes sentient. AI acquires rights, like AI has the right to vote, whatever. Then you got some billionaire says, "Oh, I'm going to make 1,000,000 AIs that are all sentient, and I'll make them in a way that they'll vote a certain way, something like that." So it's new individuals, not just people, not just humans. Not altering rights for people already alive, right? Time limit built into the Constitution. The restriction can only last. Here it is. Okay, this restriction can only last until all the great grandparents of the youngest living person have passed away. I don't think that's what it said. I think it's screwed up here. In practice, this makes the restriction inherently temporary. It phases out once the pre-restriction generations have fully cycled. Also, there was another restriction in there. It said when the procreation rate was beyond natural human rates. So it wasn't talking about humans, and it didn't catch that either. Let me go up there and read that again. Let's see if I can find that. This is huge. Every time I asked it a question, it spit out like, a book. It spit out a whole bunch of stuff here. Let's see if I can find that. Let's see. Section 10. See all this writing here? This is all part of the amendment. Let's see here. In court. Oh, equality. Look at that. All these things are covered. We'll get to that in a little bit. Let's see here. Did I pass it up? Oh, I passed up the section. Let's see here. Sorry, I shouldn't have. I lost my place there. I shouldn't have. It talks about equality, basic assistance. Privacy. I forget where it was. I forget where I was now. Citizens. Shit. Sorry about that. Let's see, can I? Oh, I know what I can do. I can search the website, the web page. Until I find. Okay, that's what I just asked it. Here it is. Okay, this is the actual text of the amendment that I just asked it about. It says those whose procreation abilities are beyond natural human rates. So right away, it's not humans, or it's humans that have been modified somehow, may have their right to procreate restricted if they cannot provide for the care of all progeny, and if the rate of procreation threatens civil society or corrupts the equal protection of law, which I just explained, right? If they created a million AI and they all voted for somebody, that wouldn't be equal protection. Let's see. When resources available to the people are insufficient to provide the basic lifetime needs of all the people, then one's right to procreate may be limited. Right to procreate may be limited until all of his grandparents, great-grandparents have passed. And we figured out that's 5 generations, and I don't think there's anybody alive right now who is in that situation, so it doesn't apply. This would apply to AI, and it would apply to like if they did life extension, and people were able to live 500 years or something, you know. Okay, so we figured that out. All right, let's see what it said again down here. All right, so I told it to explain that. Okay, the restriction can only last until all the great-grandparents of the youngest living person have passed away. See, that's not even close to what it said. So Chat GPT-5 dropped the ball on this one. Well, that was a real complicated thing, right? That was a real complicated word. The wording was very complicated in that clause. So, but it dropped the ball on that definitely. The restriction can only last until all of the great-grandparents of the youngest living person have passed away. So it dropped the ball on that one. It didn't figure that out properly. All right, that's kind of interesting. In practice, this makes the restriction inherently temporary. Okay. Phases out once the pre-restriction generations have fully cycled. Preservation of rights while in force. Even under restriction, the decision process must respect the broader rights and framework. Due process, equality. Okay. Yeah, that's... Contrast with current use, today has no provision for limiting procreation under any conditions. This amendment introduces a narrow rights subordinate population control level for crisis scenarios. Okay, that makes sense. With a self-expiring structure. Okay, it seems like an edge case, that it's addressing, but it might, in the future, it might not be an edge case. In the future, if, like I said, if they're creating the AIs or if they're able to make people straight from the DNA, and figure out some technology where a single person could make thousands of other people, that would be a problem, right? So that would need to be addressed, I guess. Okay. Very interesting. All right, let me go back up to that where we were here. Okay, so it did a breakdown again of these things. See, rights granted in Section 4. Criminal justice, property. I'm going to scroll down a little bit further. Oh, here's this Section 6 that I was talking about. Let's go through that. This is okay. So here's basically what, for those of you who just joined, what we're doing. I'm using Copilot in order to access GPT-5, and I had a reason for doing that. But Copilot will only accept a certain number of tokens, or characters actually, in the web interface. GPT-5 has a huge context window, and it can take a lot of data in and analyze it. But Copilot, the web interface that actually feeds that information to GPT-5, has a restriction of a certain number of characters. And this constitutional amendment, this proposed constitutional amendment, was larger than what this thing could handle. So it had to be fed in a section at a time, basically, to this Copilot. All right, so that it says here are a couple more sections. Okay, how do they affect things? Okay, that's what I kept saying. Here's some more sections. Well, how does this? Now what does it? Now what does it mean? And so I kept feeding them in like that. All right, it says equal protection. This is what the amendment says. Okay, but this section 6 of the amendment says equal protection of the laws of the United States or any state or local government shall not be denied, and enforcement rights and privileges shall not vary, nor may any restitution or deprivation be varied, or any judicial or natural person discriminate in connection with any employment or other offer of goods or services on account of, wow, all right, physical or mental illness, all right, genetic composition, sex, gender identity or lack of gender. Keep in mind, this amendment was written over a decade ago. Sexual orientation, mental, social, or physical ability, unintentional physical appearance, national origin, race or ethnicity, biological status or lack of biology, age, veteran status, religion, belief, or opinion, social status, familial status, wealthiness or impoverishment. That's good. I wish we had that. Or any other condition or status not under one's control. No right, advantage, favor, waiver, or let's see. Oh, okay. All right. Have a good one. Happy nightmares. Yeah, this is like I'm getting in the weeds about how GPT does legal analysis. So it's not for everybody. All right. Take care. Let's see. Official, representative, or workers to any particular individual, group, or class that is withheld from certain others or all others, except as expressly provided by this Constitution. Wait, no right, advantage, favor, waiver, or immunity may be granted, recognized, or guaranteed by any government to any public official, representative, or worker, or to a particular individual, group, or class that is withheld from certain others or all others, except as expressly provided by this Constitution. Oh, okay. Government, public official, representative. Okay, so what it's saying, it's basically saying that the way I interpret this is that, like, Congress can't make loopholes in the law for themselves. I think that's what that's saying. Any public official, representative, or worker. No one shall be required to address any public official or any other government worker by an honorific title, nor shall any government worker or official request or suggest such address. Yeah, no more Mr. President. We're just peons, Mr. President. Yeah. We can call him Donnie. Hey, Donnie. Let's see. When one's condition or status prevents others from the free exercise of their rights, it may be appropriately managed. Prevents others from free exercise. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. When one's conditional or status prevents others from the free exercise of their rights. Condition or status prevents others from the free exercise of their rights. Not sure what that means. It may be appropriately managed using minimally sufficient means to preserve the rights of others while accommodating the needs of the person's condition to the extent practicable. And I'd like to hear how it interprets that. Let's see. The workplace accommodations. Oh, okay. So basically, this is just saying people are going to be treated equally. You know, this whole thing. No government worker or worker for an entity who. So, okay. Oh, this has 1/10 of the wage. Oh. No government worker or worker for an entity who receives any grant of money or subsidy from the Treasury or who receives payment from the Treasury for any goods or services in excess of market value shall earn less than 1/10 the wage and benefits of the highest paid government worker within a jurisdiction. So in other words, they cap pay to a 10-to-1 ratio in the government. So that's good. The average wage and benefits of the government workers of any jurisdiction shall be equal to the average wage and benefits of all the adults residing in a jurisdiction. Oh, that's good. Okay, so people have to get paid as much as people in government, or vice versa. All right, let's see. Judicial remedies, compensation, hedonistic damages, whatever that is, loss of future earnings. All right, I don't know what this is. It's just a lot of stuff here. The alteration or use of public land or other common resource must be limited or organized. The right of alteration or use shall be periodically distributed equally among all the people as a proper right to each individual, and such rights may be freely traded without restriction. The period of time between distributions shall equal the duration of the right and be frequent enough to accommodate charge. Oh my God. I'd like to ask her what that means. I want to ask her what that means. Let's see what it says. Term of protection for patents shall equal the term of protection for copyrights. Oh, yes. And all issues shall be of equal length. Yeah, right now, the way it's set up, if somebody, makes a piece of music or artwork, or writes a book or makes a movie or something like that, it gets copyrighted for a long time, as long as the person lives plus another 75 years, I think is that what it is right now. Huge, long time. Basically, anybody alive when the thing is made is probably not going to see it go into the public domain to be protected, But patents only last like 17 years, I think it is. I don't know what the 20 years. I don't know what the number is now, but it's a much shorter time. So this says that this is the equity section of this amendment. It says that they're all equal. So whatever term they set for copyrights, the length of term has to be the same for patents also. So that's interesting. I'd like to see no copyrights or copyrights set to a minimal, couple years or something. Because copyright, the whole idea of copyright, the word copyright, that came from way back when there were kings, monarchies and all that. And when they first came up with, the Gutenberg press and all that, and they started making prints of stuff, the king wanted to control what was printed. And so nobody could print anything unless they got a copyright, a permit basically from the king to make copies of something. That's where the word copyright came from. So it's ironic that's basically what one of the main tools that government and the grasping class is using to limit what people can say is by copyrighting something. And then that prevents people from exercising their free speech that way. So it's interesting that's anyway. So that's I think this clause here would make copyright smaller, shorter, because they're not going to make patents that last forever, right? I don't think. Freedom to worship, respect for life and nature. No person may take any action that causes a race or species of life to become endangered or extinct, except in the case of tangible, non-sentient contagions that are noxious to health, have no foreseeable supportive purpose, and otherwise possess no rights. Okay, well, nobody can make any species go extinct. That's good. No land may be altered in a manner that causes it to be ordinarily uninhabitable for a period of 100 years or more by natural species. I think that's good. First acting on behalf. Oh, we got an ad starting here pretty quick. Did I blow through an ad? I don't know. I didn't see any come up. Let's see. No. Where are we at here? Right. Okay. So they can't. I think that's you can't bulldoze a bunch of land so that the animals can't live on it anymore. Is that what that's saying? I don't know. I'm not sure what that means. Person acting on behalf of a government may not harm or kill any person or creature who has the right to live or exists. No funds can be allocated for that purpose, except for acts of self-defense. All right. Basic assistance. This is basically UBI. I don't know. Yeah, I read this and it said it mentioned a maximum, but I don't know what the maximum is. I couldn't tell what the maximum would be. But it's okay. We got an ad now. All right, so there's an ad running right now. And it says it's on for another 40 seconds, but my little monitor here is telling me that it's longer than that. So I don't know. I'll wait until it says that it's all done. Channels I follow. Oh, here it is. There it is. Okay. Each request must be supported by an oath or after the reason for the request. What are we looking here? Oh, okay. This is the UBI system. The care of those in need being a concern of a civil society, Congress shall establish a basic assistance fund. A minimum of 1/3 of all tax receipts shall be reserved in the fund. Well, that's good. Is that more than we're doing now? Or less? I don't know. Any adult person having lawfully resided in the United States for at least 1 year, being in a basic assistance, shall submit or may submit a request for assistance. Person may submit up to 4 requests per month, and each request is limited to a maximum amount of 7/10. Oh, here it is. Okay, here's the maximum. Is limited to a maximum amount of 7/10 of the average weekly wage of all adults. 7/10. That's pretty high, isn't it? What's the average weekly wage? Okay, but a person may request no more than they require for basic needs. Okay, each person making a request shall immediately receive a direct money payment from the Basic Assistance Fund in the amount of her request, but no more than the maximum. This amendment was written over a decade ago, so it was before they became popular as a pronoun. So it kind of goes back and forth between his and her. So at least it's not using masculine all the time. Let's see. Each request must be supported by an oath or affirmation of the reason for the request. Supported by oath or affirmation of the reason of the request. I guess that's an affirmation of the person making the request, I guess. Requesters may voluntarily provide services. Requesters may voluntarily provide services or assistance to others to express gratitude for the benefits received. Congress may publish guidelines defining basic needs and alternative sources of assistance. However, each requester is the final arbiter of her own basic need. Well, it could be abused, but that's not quite UBI, but it's UBI says everybody gets it, right? Universal basic income. I mean, this strict interpretation or strict definition of UBI is that every single person gets a set, $1,000 a month or whatever it is, $2,000 a month, whatever. And which, you say, oh, that seems fair. Everybody gets an equal amount, except that because wealthy people, or even just people who don't need it, are also getting that money, it means there's less for the people who really need it. You know what I'm saying? So this, I think this is an improvement, actually. Except that it says that each requester is the final arbiter of their basic needs. So, everybody could say that they need the money, right? But like if Jeff Bezos said he needed assistance and requested it, I think he would probably get in trouble under this law. I don't know how that would work. Biometric information or other uniquely identifiable information about the requester may be collected and recorded solely for the purpose of identification and prevention of duplicate payments. Well, that makes sense, I guess, right? You want to make sure that you don't have somebody who makes 100 requests or something. Let's see the total amount of requests. Okay, this is getting kind of complicated here again. Okay, so that's interesting. It's UBI. It's a way to do UBI, but just for poor people or people who think they're poor. I guess I don't know how that works. The executive shall maintain a list of all people within the jurisdiction of the United States. The list shall include full name, domicile address, citizenship, immigration status. That's not just the census. This is like a list or whatever. It's like a social security number on steroids or something, I guess. All right, so this is how GTP interpreted all that. So who gets protected? The protected classes. Biological status or lack of biology covers AI, synthetic beings, uploaded minds. Wow. And other non-biological sentient entities. Any condition or status not under one's control potentially sweeps in species membership, genetic modifications, accidental traits. Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand that. Bans discrimination by both government and private actors in employment and provision of goods and services, far broader than U.S. law, which currently limits constitutional equal protection. Now, this is what GTP is saying, right? This is what GTP is saying, this part here. Knock-on effects. Non-human but rights-holding beings from Section 23, sentient animals and AI, would be covered against discrimination on the same basis as humans. Huh. That's good, I guess. No advantage or immunity clause means government officials get exactly the same rights and benefits as everyone else. Yeah. No more loopholes for Congress. That's good. Religious freedom. I think that interpreted that correctly. I think that was all interpreted correctly. This I'm not sure of. Sentient animals and AI, yeah. Because they would be people, I guess, according to that thing. Religious freedom codified. Okay. Did that interpret that right? I don't know. It didn't. Rights for species and ecosystems, section 9. Respect for life and nature. Here it is. Universal basic income. Let's see what it says here. 1/3 of all tax receipts reserved for direct cash assistance to any adult lawful resident in need. Right, that's what it said. Requests self-defined by the claimant with immediate payment up to capped amount. So it didn't say what the capped amount was. Let's see. Public record of recipients. No garnishment or seizure of payments. Okay. Replaces almost all other forms of welfare, subsidies, pensions, consolidating into a single constitutional entitlement. Contrast, U.S. currently has means-tested, program-specific benefits, not a single unconstitutional cash right. So it's not entirely UBI, but it's almost UBI, but it's focused more for poor people, I guess. And it gets rid of all the other bullshit, you know. Right now there are a whole bunch of different, you know, there's just a ton of different agencies and stuff that poor people have to navigate to try to get assistance, you know. It's really hard. So that would simplify it, I think. Let's see, National Registry of People. And we just talked about that. This is all generated by GTP-5. This whole thing here, generated by GTP-5. It decided to make this table, you know, different, you know, edge cases or whatever. Let's see here. Major divergences from. Okay, covers private discrimination constitutionally. Expands protected classes, right? Because it included, you know, all the different genders and sexes and everything else. Religious neutrality, environmental rights, right to live, economic rights, transparency versus privacy, public registry. Okay, so it's basically a phone book for the United States. It has a little bit more information in it. Let's see, non-human integration. Right, because there are going to be others coming up here, AI and maybe others that are sentient and maybe even smarter than humans that need to be covered. Right, that's what that's saying here. Non-human integration. A rights matrix. Okay, it wants to do some more even. Okay, then I asked it how it was doing on context space because we were going. This is a long time. I'm an hour and 40, almost 2 hours, and I'm not even reading every single word of this thing. So I thought maybe it might be running out of context space. This GTP-5. This is no problem. And so I said, okay, here's another section. So there's a section on privacy, a section on the Supreme Court. Integrity. Huh. This is interesting. Okay, I don't know what that's. Any president, senator, representative, official, or government worker in a position to influence or affect policy and having a conflict of interest or having accepted any benefit to herself or to any entity on her behalf or otherwise to have come under influence other than her own conscience or the will of the people, shall recuse herself from any participation, deliberation, vote, or other activity that influences any policy or legislation affecting any such benefactor or source of influence. However, the right of suffrage as an ordinary citizen should not be abridged in any situation. Okay, so that was just one section. It had a whole bunch of these things in here, right? Talking about that. Oh, 10 years. Yeah, there's a 10-year cap, a 10-year maximum term limit on anybody in government. But it has term limits of, what was it? I forget what it was, 3 years, I think, or something like that. Really short term limits. Okay, it's got privacy in here. It's got adds a jury of citizens, 10 per state, randomly selected, as a constitutional check on the 9 jurists of the Supreme Court. So yeah, that's a new thing. This does is it puts a jury on the Supreme Court. So anyone who the Supreme Court can't go do these wacky things that it's been doing. If they do something that's really out of whack, then the jury can nullify what they're doing. Can cancel. It says jury can cancel Supreme Court decisions that infringe abridged rights with a 3/5 vote within 30 days of issuance. Jury can compel the Supreme Court to hear cases. That's another way they get around with stuff. Trump and others have been doing all this unconstitutional shit, and then they, people bring cases and they bring it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says, we don't want to hear it, and then you're stuck, right? It's totally breaks the law, but the Supreme Court just says they don't want to hear the case, so that looks like that's a way to get around that. Court must interpret the Constitution exactly as written, using original time meanings. Implications. Adds a popular democratic safeguard over judicial review. Rights as defined in all of these sections become harder to narrow by judicial reinterpretation. God, it's amazing that this thing is just able to read that complicated text and figure out exactly what it means. And it did it, like I said, in just a couple seconds. Integrity. Anti-corruption. Yeah, it's got that figured out. System-wide effects when combined. Okay. We'll skip down here. Okay, here are the final couple paragraphs. All right. Duties. Representation. Here it is. The term of senators and representatives is 1 year, and they are limited to 3 terms of service. So that's 3 years. So both the senators and the House of Representatives are limited to serving for 3 years. That's a pretty tight term limit. Let's see. Defense. That's the whole thing about defense. Legislative procedure. All right, let's see what it said. What did it find out about that? Government size and transitional protections. Any government jurisdiction over 500 people can only employ fewer than 3% of its population as government workers. Yeah, that's another way they're able to do a bunch of unconstitutional stuff. They just hire enough people as employees, or otherwise bribe people to not to go along with it. Okay, transition pensions, transparency, monthly public report on compliance. I don't know what that means. Duties. Representation. Okay, annual election. Annual elections for all members of Congress. So figured that out, right? We just read that. At-large voting. Oh, this is at-large voting within each state. Every citizen can vote for 2 senators and 1 representative. Yeah, I think ranked choice voting would probably be better, huh? Maybe. This is at large, so that means everybody in the state. Let's see, term limits. Yeah, at large voting usually means that everybody in the state can vote for anybody. But let's see, it's saying that you can only vote for 1 representative. But like California has, what do they have, like 20 something different representatives or something like that? So what is it, the first 20? The top 20 vote getters? Wow. Transition period exempts sitting members from certain limits if continuously reelected. You know what I think would be a good system at this point is just frickin' pick people at random, you know. Really, I think we could do much better that way. If we just pick people, just, you know, what is it, 435 people in Congress, just every couple years, just randomly pick 435 people, citizens in the United States, and send them to Washington. I think I think they could do a much better job. Let's see. Near absolute right to weapon. Okay, yeah, this amendment has a very strong Second Amendment thing going on it. War powers. Tight constraints on declarations of war and emergencies with short maximum duration without public referendum. Public referendum. Is that right? Is that what that said? Let's see here. War. No force under the control of the President or Congress or any other person or entity may be used at any time or place against a citizen who does not present a threat of direct, imminent physical harm, unless expressly and specifically allowed by this Constitution. Well, I wonder if it does or not. Let's see. Okay. The President, acting as Commander-in-Chief, may only direct the armed forces to use force against an aggressor, and only with a declaration of war from Congress. There we go. That's good. The last time Congress declared war was for the World War II. And the current Constitution says that Congress has to declare war. But we've been fighting all these other wars without Congress declaring war. And so that means the president just is able to go out and start a war. One guy, the president, is able to start a war. You know, make our country go to war. Just one guy. Which is just insane, you know. So that's good. Let's see. Repel an attack under exigent circumstances. If force is used without declaration of war, the President shall inform the Speaker of the House within 48 hours of the initiation of the force. And if Congress does not declare war against the object of the force within 7 days, then the President shall immediately withdraw the use of force. Wow. So this is like the War Powers Act on steroids, isn't it? Declaration of war emergency shall require yea votes. Yeah, a declaration of war or emergency shall require yea votes from a majority of members present in each house of Congress and must specify the aggressors, geographic scope, and the conditions and extent of the force to be used. That's good too, because they've passed some. They have this anti-terrorism AUMF that is just says the president can go after the terrorists anywhere in the world. Basically, is what it is. There's no restriction, and that's just freaking insane, So that's good. They have that in there. Let's see what else. All right, so we looked at that. Couple more sections. Powers of Congress. Okay. Powers. This is a big, long frickin' section here. So I uploaded this one up to them. Couple more sections here about powers, all the powers of Congress. And it spit out something, but I didn't give it the whole section. It still tried to analyze it anyway. And then I gave it the second part of it, and then okay. All right, so here's what it says. Plain language laws, regulations must be understandable to an average person. Now, see, I don't know. Would an average person be able to understand the way this amendment is written? I don't know. It looks pretty complicated to me. Open meetings. Recorded votes. Every decision in legislative administrative bodies must log names and positions. Names and positions. This is where ChatGPT starts to drift. At the beginning of the stream, I mentioned that GPT-5 when it goes long time into a conversation with a huge number of tokens, its word choice really starts to drift, And instead of saying, it must log the names and their votes, it said positions, which is not. That's a weird word. You should. And it starts doing that, and it gets worse and worse. The more you get into it, the more it starts to drift on these word choices. Let's see. Treasury disclosure, public information, officials' privacy carve-out may be overwritten in the name of transparency. Oh, that's good. Yeah, a lot of times government would do stuff and they'll say, "Oh, we're trying to protect somebody's privacy," and usually they're just trying to cover up some corrupt thing that they're doing, State secrets. Okay. Limits on clemency and immunity. No pardons, reprieves for crimes benefiting the president, vice president, or department heads. Right? So the president can't pardon his co-conspirators who committed insurrection. April 6th. If this amendment was in there, it would have prevented Trump from pardoning all those people who committed insurrection. So, and this was written before January 6th. This was written over a decade ago. So that's something. Committed with expectations of clemency, expanding government power, donations, benefits to the president. Yeah, people can't buy pardons. That's right. No forward-looking clemency for future acts. So, okay, that makes sense. The president can't promise somebody that he'll pardon them if they do something. That's not. I mean, that should be the law right now, right? That should be obvious. But because it's not explicit in the Constitution, the Supreme Court just lets them do what they want. I don't know what that means. Let's see. Legislative exclusivity. Oh, this is different. This is different. If a president cannot finish the term, the successor cannot serve past the remainder of that current term. All right, so that's a little bit different. Does everybody know how it works right now? Everybody knows how it works now, right? If because of the 22nd Amendment, 22nd Amendment changed put term limits on the president. It used to be that a president could serve as long as they wanted, but just by tradition, after a couple of terms, they dropped out. But then FDR came in, and he served, what about 13 terms or something? I don't know. It was a long time. The guy was basically a dictator, right? He wasn't a dictator, but he just stayed until he died. He just stayed as president. And so everybody freaked out about that, and then they passed the 22nd Amendment. 22nd Amendment limits the president to 2 terms. It's kind of complicated the way it's worded, but if the president dies before halfway through a term, so like if the president died after the first year, then the vice president would become president and would just serve out the rest of that term. And that would count as a term for him, and then he could only serve 1 more term. But if the president dies like in the 3rd year of a term, then the vice president becomes president, serves out the rest of that term, and can do 2 more terms after that. So a president can actually serve, in an extreme edge case, could serve 10 years even with that term limit on the thing. And there are also some loopholes in the current law. So this one just says flat out that they just finish out the term. I guess that's simpler, right? Interaction with part 1. I don't know what part 1 is. All right. Let's see. Oh, here. Okay, so it processed all that stuff and it gave its opinion on all that. GPT-5 gave its opinion on all that stuff. And I said, do you want to see the commerce and banking sections before doing the matrix? That's another thing that GPT-5 does, is it gives you after it gives its answer, it says, do you want me to do this other thing? And it does that in order to try to get you to keep asking stuff to it, to keep you, whatever. So it asked me, it said it wanted to create this big, huge matrix, of how all the different parts of this amendment are supposed to work with each other or something. And so it kept asking me to do that. And so I said, do you want to see the commerce and banking sections before doing the matrix? And it said, yeah, sure. That'd be better. Clean master chart. Okay. So I gave it these sections. There's a commerce section and a banking section. This is pretty complicated. I don't know. If you want to, I should put this thing in chat, shouldn't I? Let me put a link to this thing in chat so people have it, right? Let's see. I gotta find it first. Let me find a link to this thing here. All right, there we go. All right, so here's the link. Okay. Link to the amendment. It's still on here. Right, this is a link to the text of the amendment. So if you wanted to, if you're a law person, and you want to read through the amendment itself, and then read through what ChatGPT was saying about it to compare, that's something you could do. That's the text of the amendment. And the website is just without all this stuff in it. Let me just do that. I'll type that in. Right. Did I type that right? I think that's right. Yeah. Oh, it's not coming up. Maybe I typed in the wrong thing. Let me try harder. That didn't seem to work. All right, let's see if that works. Yeah, that worked. Okay, so that other link didn't work for some reason. Okay, let me get back to the thing here. Oh, we got ads coming up, maybe. It says ads are coming up here in 10 seconds. So I'll wait. We might have ads. If we do, I'll wait, and we'll just go through the ad. Or we'll just wait till the ads are done. It says ads starting soon. If anybody has any questions, if you're watching, if you're on the VOD, the video gets uploaded to YouTube and all over, or at doubletribble.com. So if you're watching it, if you're not watching this live and you have questions, just go ahead and type into the comments of YouTube, or you can get over to Twitch and contact me there. I also have a social media thing on Mastodon. It's different than X. It's not an X thing. Here, these are all my. Oh shit! Is that ad still playing? It says the ad is still in progress. So. All right, I'm gonna try to get my social links and stuff into the chat here, so you can see it. There we go. Okay. So yeah, I don't really check the other one, but if you at YouTube doubletribble.yt, so you can just write a comment into the comment section of that when I upload the video, and in fact, you can put a comment anywhere on any video about it and ask me anything, and I'll probably answer. So. All right, it says the ad's still playing, so we'll wait. Yeah. Also, this is my first time trying to use alerts. So if somebody wants to follow me sometime on my stream here, we can test it out, see if it works. All right, ads are over, I think, as far as I can tell. Okay, commerce. Okay, so this is the text of the amendment that I sent to the thing, some more sections. Okay, let's see. Primary scope. So it read all that shit. It read all of this. In addition to having all those other things that it had, And it sorted through it, and it figured out what the primary thing was of all of that. And it says the market structure limits trade freedoms, contract fairness, intellectual property disposition, funding linked openness, genetic code protections, non-discrimination in carriage. Wow. Entity size caps. Okay, I see what this is. This is a. It's not saying it very clearly here when it says entity size caps. This is basically antitrust. The way antitrust is set right now, it's they're basically letting there's no antitrust anymore. They're just letting companies acquire other companies unless they bribe them. You know what I mean? Unless they think they can get some money out of them, and then they'll say no, you can't do that, and then they wait until the company bribes them, and then they let them merge or whatever. You guys understand antitrust, right? That means you can't have a single company controlling too much of something. And we're so far beyond that right now. So this is antitrust is what it's saying. It's saying that companies can't have total assets that are greater than 20% of the treasury revenue. They can't have a market share greater than 40% of the market. They can't control more than 20% of a particular resource. They can only have so many employees and stuff like that. And it's not set like it's specific numbers. It's all set at percentages of stuff. So like if the population grows, then the size of companies can grow or something like that, I guess. Market maturity definitions. Trade protection. Yeah, this is contract asymmetry rule. Wealthier party must actually confirm counterparty's full understanding. Statutory minimums don't override. So that's good. IP buyout mechanism. Wow. Here, no copyright or patent on an individual's genetic or other code. So that's good. An individual in this thing means not just people. It means any creature that can feel pain or whatever. Common carrier neutrality. Okay. Treasury and the central bank. This is really specific law. This is like really, there aren't that many people who understand how this works, how the banking system works. So the fact that it's able to understand this is pretty amazing. Fiscal constraints. Personal accountability. Certain officials ineligible for office benefits until debts. Oh, okay. I think I remember that. That's basically it requires a balanced budget. I think that's what. But it didn't say that here. It doesn't say it requires a balanced budget. So that's kind of weird that it didn't figure that out. No conditional expenditure. Let's see. Asset sale proceeds. Currency and monetary base. Yeah, the way it's set up right now, the Federal Reserve, there's a part of the Federal Reserve called the Open Market Committee that determines basically how much money they print, They control inflation and interest rates and stuff like that. You may hear headlines every once in a while. where they say that the Federal Reserve is, making interest rate higher or lower or whatever, and they don't actually set the rate. What they do is they either buy or sell assets in order to make more money available in the system. And the more money they make available in the system, because of supply and demand, the lower the interest rate will go. But because if they put more money into the system, that's also inflationary. So they have what's called a dual mandate. That this is how they do it now. Okay, they have a dual mandate, and they will, if inflation is going too much, if there's too much inflation, then they sell assets that they're holding into the market in order to take in more money. So there's less money in the system, and that causes interest rates to go up. But it also reduces inflation. But when they do that, when interest rates go up, it also lowers economic activity, which also lowers inflation. It's kind of, I don't know, it's if you're into macroeconomics, then you'll love this part of it, right? You'll get into all of it, right? Okay, so currency and monetary base. Okay, the dollar is the sole legal tender, so no cyber. What's it called? Cryptocurrency. Oh, for public payments. Okay. So people can still use crypto. They just can't use it for dealing with the government, I guess. Maybe that's what that means. I don't know. I'm not going to go back and read all that stuff. Let's see here. Well, where we're at here. Monetary base cap, $25,000 for each natural person able to use money. Okay, so that puts a cap on them being able to print money. They can't just keep printing money, in order to fund their something. Because that happens sometimes when you get a corrupt person in, government in power. Usually, a lot of dictators do this. When they get into power, they just print a bunch of money. They just keep printing money because they have the power to do that in the government, and then they have more money that they can dole out to people. More money means more power, right? And they use that money to either make themselves wealthy or to buy power, and that sort of thing. But when they do that, when they print lots of money like that, it's super inflationary, and the value of everybody's bank account, if they have money, goes down when that happens. Inflation actually is not as bad for poor people as wealthy people. Actually, poor people don't have a lot of money. So when the value of money goes down, the people who have the most money lose the most. You know what I'm saying? It can make it harder for poor people to buy the basics of of life and all that. But if the benefits and all the other stuff are indexed to inflation, then they should get an increase. Ideally, the government isn't doing that. So like Social Security right now, if you're on Social Security, last year the interest rates went up, or the inflation rate got up to 8% or something like that. And rents have been 50%, doubling in some cases. I mean, prices have really been going up. A lot of inflation, but you know what the cost of living increase on Social Security last year was 2.5%. So inflation is going up 8%, but the cost of living increase that they gave to Social Security recipients only increased 2.5%. So that's basically a cut. They cut Social Security. You don't hear anybody talking about that, but that's what they did. They cut social. They've been cutting Social Security the last couple of years because inflation has gone way up, but they haven't been increasing the cost of living increase in pace with inflation. So that's basically cut. They're cutting Social Security. What else we got here? Okay, so monetary base is fixed then, or at least there's a cap. You can't have more than this amount of money for each natural person. I don't know what that works out to be, if it's more or less or whatever than what we got right now. I don't know. Let's see. Banking access governance. Oh, okay. Yeah, another thing that the central bank does is that they provide services to the big banks that need to, borrow money or loan money or whatever back and forth with the central bank. So this amendment changes that, so that even the smaller banks can get access. And the larger banks use that. It's like putting the larger banks at the top of the food chain by law. According to the way the Federal Reserve works. So, all right, let's see. Okay, so ChatGPT said a powers matrix. Yeah, it kept talking about the matrix. It's table is what that meant, right? It's making a table, but they kept using the word matrix, and then they said powers matrix, and it kind of got confused about the word, and it sounded like it was talking about, the movie, The Matrix. It was conflating those meanings, so it was kind of funny. Rights powers matrix. Look at this. And this table is cut off. I can't even read what it says here. So that's not a problem with chat. That's not a problem with GPT-5. That's a problem with Copilot. Copilot is not rendering this properly, or is not sending the code to render this table properly. But it made this entire thing. It did all these explanations and all this, and it finally got down here. And it said, "Would you like me to make this big matrix?" And I said, "Okay." And it just went and it just did all this, all these different things. Personal account of office. Oh, here's interesting. Personal accountability of officials. Right to debt accountable governance. Right. Bars specified individuals from office or benefits until the debts of their term are repaid. Oh, okay. I remember what this is. This is if right now there's no disincentive to Congress to just keep spending more money than they're taking in. When they spend more money than they take in, you heard of the debt and the deficit. You heard those? The deficit is the amount of money that they spend above the money that they're taking in taxes for a particular year. That's the deficit. So that's like $1 trillion or whatever it is, and that deficit gets added onto the debt then for that year. And the debt keeps stacking up. Every year it gets another $1 trillion or whatever into it. Last couple years ago, they did it $6 trillion in 1 year when Trump was in there. So it's huge. It increases a lot. And we're in the 30 something $1 trillion now. Huge amount of debt. And they have no disincentive to stop doing that because, one, it gives them more money to spend, which gives them more power. What they do when they have the power to spend money, what they do is they go to certain businesses, billionaires and millionaires and people and their cronies or whatever. And they say, here, we've got all this money. We'll dole it out to you, but you got to bribe us first. You got to donate to our campaign or give us stock tips or whatever it is. So it gives them more power. When they have more money to spend, it's more power for them. So their incentive is to spend as much money as possible, even if they don't get that much money in taxes. So that's the first problem. The other problem is that the higher the debt goes, in order to fund that, right? In order to get the money, they have to borrow that money from somebody. Now, who do they borrow it from? Wealthy people who have a lot of money, right? Those are the people they get the money from. The big banks, all the billionaires and all that. It's not just the U.S. It's all over the world. The wealthy people are the ones that they get the money from. They borrow that money from the wealthy people. And when they borrow the money, they have to pay interest to those wealthy people. So the people who benefit the most from this deficit spending are the wealthy people. Because right now, the interest on the debt is a huge, huge chunk of the money that's going out. And all that interest on the debt is going to wealthy people. People who had enough money to lend to the government. So deficit spending is, it's not just, it's bad for poor people, average people who are not wealthy. It's very bad for them because we're the ones who have to pay the taxes, The tax system is set up for so that the poor and the middle class pay the bulk of the taxes. Wealthy people don't pay, but just a tiny sliver of a percent of the money that they actually rake in. I don't know if that's kind of a digression there a little bit, but anyway, that's good. It's good that they have a debt. They have a thing here that says that if Congress or anyone is in office and they do a deficit, they don't have a balanced budget, they spend more than they take in, then they're prohibited from holding office, and they don't even get paid until that debt is paid back. So that's good. That's an incentive for the office holders not to do that. I don't know. They should just make it against the law, I guess. I think they did say that, but they got this other thing there too, I guess. Banking reserves and insurance. Let's see. Protection of depositor funds through high reserve requirements and risk-rated insurance. Ownership cap prevents concentration of CB equity. Central bank equity. Central bank reserve and insurance mandates. Citizen-only ownership. Oh, that was another thing. Yeah, citizen. Right now, the Federal Reserve, the central bank, is it's basically set up so like half of the members are chosen by government and half of them are picked by the billionaires, by the bankers, themselves. And this says that it would be citizens. Citizens would have votes on the central bank and would own it. So that's cool. They're probably not going to like that. Anti-concentration theme. Okay, observations. This is, this is GPT-5. It gave this matrix, and then it says, okay, here are my observations of that matrix. It says anti-concentration theme. Entity sizes are limited by Section 8. Central bank equity caps are philosophically aligned. Both decentralized economic power. So that's good, I think. If you're not a billionaire, you should like that. Openness, reciprocity. Subsidy-linked open license. I don't know what that is. Subsidy-linked open licensing resonates with equal asset sale distributions. God, I don't even know what it's saying there. Structural fiscal guardrails, debt limits. Okay, that's what it's talking about. Surplus rules and no beyond term contracting all act as circuit breakers on government scope, potentially constraining rights expansion elsewhere unless paired with surplus use. I don't know what that means. This is where ChatGPT is just, it's starting to fade. GPT-5. It's just starting to pick weird words here that don't make a lot of sense. It's not exactly hallucinating. It's just the word choices are just kind of going askew a little bit. Okay, and then I made a comment about the not being able to read this table here being cut off. I told it about that, and I don't know what it just said. Thank you for telling me. I don't know. Did it do it differently here? Yeah, it did. It printed it out differently. It printed it out as a bullet form then. All right. Money flow and authorization. Now I took before I did this one, this whole conversation with GTP5 through Copilot, I did it on OpenAI, and it actually broke down a lot further earlier. It really got confused, and when I sent the whole at OpenAI, I sent it the whole amendment at one time because it was able to do that. It was able to I was able to upload it as a file to OpenAI. I didn't have to do this piecemeal stuff at OpenAI. So I actually did that. Oh no, I did this one first and then I did that one. I forget which one I did first. But when I did that at OpenAI and gave it the whole thing all at once, right away it focused in on the central bank and all the stuff, this last part here. It focused in on that at the very beginning. And it was weird. It was like telling me. It even put up a warning thing and said it was just doing weird stuff, saying, "Oh, warning! This is going to be, you're taxing everything, or whatever, This amendment is going to tax everything." And it's like, what are you talking about? It just. Let me see if I can find that here. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to bring that up. But it was just really weird. And it focused in on the parts of this proposed amendment that would be the billionaires would not like. You know what I'm saying? I was really suspicious why it was doing that. It was focusing in on all the parts of this amendment, like the central bank and the tax system being more fair and all that. It didn't like that. And it was actually like putting commentary in there, and saying, "Oh, this isn't going to work," and blah, Let me see if I have that in here. Here's master rights, powers matrix. This is these words. Integration notes. Okay. I'm going to search this and see if this one talked about taxes or not. Tax. That's all I need, right? Let's see here. Tax receipts. Okay, those are definitions. Okay, wait a second here. I don't think this one even got into the taxes part of it. But the amendment is set up so that it's a flat tax for everybody. But unlike the current tax system, it taxes everything. There are no exemptions or deductions. So what happens is, like if you wanted to take in, say 30 or 40% more tax than what we're doing now, or like if 10 trillion, that's a lot more than what we're taking in each year right now. But to take in $10 trillion under this tax system, the tax rate, according to or GPT-5, would be 0.2%. So like 1/5 of 1% tax rate would bring in $10 trillion. A lot more than we're bringing in right now. And everybody would pay that same amount. So if when you go to work, you get your pay stub, or I guess it's electronic now, but you got your what they pay you, and then they deduct all these different things. They deduct the payroll tax, they deduct the income tax, and all this stuff. They deduct it, and it usually takes about a third or more of your paycheck. It gets taken away by all this stuff. Under this, it would just be a flat 0.2%. So if you made say $3,000, then you get taxed $60. Did I do that right? Did I do that right in my head? So if your paycheck was $3,000, according to ChatGTP, $6. That's all you would get taxed under this system. But then if somebody went out and bought or sold 10,000 shares of some company, and it was $1 million sale of stock, then they would pay that amount too. So they would have to pay 0.002. They'd have to pay $2,000. You see how that would work? So it seems like it makes it more fair. And the thing is that the system right now is so skewed to help the wealthy and against the poor people that when you make it fair and everybody pays the same rate, the poor people only have to pay, like $10 a week in taxes or something or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Middle class and poor people on their wages only end up paying $10 or something on their wages. But if you tax everybody at that same rate on everything, every time somebody sells a stock, every time a company buys another company, all this stuff, if it's all taxed at the same rate, everybody, there's so much money that changes hands in the U.S. every day. Trillions of dollars change hands every day in the U.S. So you only need to tax a very, very small percentage. And if that small percentage of everybody is fair and everybody pays that same amount on all the money they take in, no matter if it's from wages or from selling stock or from, buying another company or all the sales that Walmart brings in or whatever, it just works out to a very small percentage. So it's kind of when I tell people that, it's like they almost don't even believe it. If you tell somebody, flat. If you say, okay, we want to do a flat tax, so everybody pays the same amount, and you ask people what that would be, what that amount would be, they're like thinking, oh, what is it, 25% maybe, huh? Or something like that. But because the wealthy people, basically only a teeny teeny tiny part of all the money that they take in is considered taxable by the current tax laws. They pay just a tiny amount. And a lot of times when you hear people talking about, oh, the rich people are paying 30 or 40% or whatever, but that's only on a tiny bit, They make all this money, and the tax laws say, right off the bat, okay, 95% of that doesn't count at all, even as being taxable. And then you get deductions on, another 90% or whatever, and it's just a tiny little part that ends up being taxable income. And then they pay their 30% on that, Whereas if you taxed all of that money that they take in at a small percent, and you tax wages at that same equal small percent, and all the other transactions at that small percent, it actually brings in more money, Now, if you have a calculator, you can figure it out, All the transactions in the U.S. is like about 5,000 to 6,000 trillion in a year. So if you type in like 5,000, you do it in trillions, 5,000 trillion, and multiply that by 0.0025. That's 1/4%, right? Did I do that right? 5,000 times 0.0025. That's 1/4%. That's $12.5 trillion. That's double what we're taking in right now. So that's, yeah. So if you're paying more than 1/4% on the money that you make, you're getting screwed by the current system. Because a fair system where everybody paid the same percentage on everything they made would be less than 1%. Let's see. Did a summary table. Oh my God, I don't know what this is. All right, so anyway, so that's chat. That's GTP5. They don't use the word chat anymore. It's just GTP5. God, look at all this stuff. It just kept outputting all kinds of stuff. Feedback loops and systemic effects. Anti-concentration loop. Market caps. Reduced dominance. Central bank equity limits and open access prevent monetary gatekeeping that could recreate dominance. Net effect: wider competitive field, lower systemic risk. Flags. Definitions. Clarify unique resource. So these are things that it didn't understand. And it's saying that it didn't understand. Unique resource. Guaranteed deposits. Mature and thriving. Capable of using money for transactions. They didn't understand those. Transaction rules. Okay, I got an ad here in about a minute, so. Conflict arbitration. Specify that Section 8 IP lifetime benefits fall within Section 12's payments expressly authorized by this Constitution. I don't know, it's not found some sort of conflict in the language there, it thinks. Enforcement venue. Emergency overrides. Define the scope of war or national emergency so temporary fiscal relaxations do not backdoor permanent market reconciliation. Yeah. Oh, that's what that was. Okay, I got an ad here starting pretty quick. Okay, I remember. I remember what that was now. Did it? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it ran an ad or not. I don't know if it's running an ad or not. It said it was going to start an ad, but now it's saying that it's not. But I'm going to take a, just in case it's running an ad. I'm going to go. I'm going to take a break for a minute, and then we'll come right back. Okay, we're back. I don't know if that played an ad or not, but Big Ducky Snow. Hey, Big Ducky Snow, how are you? Let's see. How long ago did you come in here? I don't know how long ago that was. Big Ducky Snow says, I got a big day of soaps. Big day of soaps tomorrow with Mama Ducky and Papa Ducky's out of the house for work. I don't think I understand what that means, but So tonight I may just be able to write a bit, but not listen in very much. But I will love being here all the same, and hope you have a madly lovely stream and rest of your day, and have a hug too, 'cause Ducky loves all his buddies. Lurk. Okay, great. Well, thanks for stopping by, Stephen. I appreciate it. I'm not sure what's going on there with the soaps. Maybe soap operas. You can watch soap operas on TV, maybe, or not sure what that means. But looks like you're gonna have a good day tomorrow because your parents are gonna be out or something. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure what that meant. But thank you for stopping by, Stephen. Appreciate it. All right, let me see if there's anything else in this. I don't think there's anything else. Oh wait, there is one other thing that it said here. And it just did this on its own. It said suggested implementation order. So it's like it went through and tried to find little quirks or whatever in the thing. You know, after it interpreted it, and it said some things that might be a problem, I guess is what it is doing here. It flagged this. Definition, you know, all these definitions it had difficulty with. Conflict arbitration. You know, I don't think it understood that it was supposed to go out to the Constitution and get the Constitution and incorporate that into. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it understood that this is like changing the Constitution, because there's some things that you know, this amendment did a lot of stuff. It almost rewrote the Constitution basically, but they didn't exactly replace the Constitution. You know, it didn't at the beginning. It didn't have a statement that said this amendment replaces the Constitution. You know what I'm saying? It just says this is an amendment. You know, so anything that wasn't addressed in the amendment is still going to be in the Constitution. And I don't think GPT-5 figured that out. As far as I can tell, it didn't seem to say anything like that. Enforcement, private agencies, courts, audit hooks. I don't know. Implementation order. So it's just an order to implement what, I guess, different clauses of this thing or something. Baseline data, treasury, revenue, adult wage, population counts, market definitions, insured deposits. Okay, so it's maybe it's saying it didn't have numbers for those. I don't know what that means. Institutional setup, central bank governance seats and shareholder registry, bank access protocols, risk rated insurance schedule. Man, I'm not sure what this means. Oh, and it wants to do more. It says, if you want, I can now merge this map into a full rights powers matrix without wide tables, or export a compact adjacency list you can paste directly into your working doc. And I just said, most of the time when it said, you know, would you like fries with that? I said, okay, you know. That's basically what it was doing here. You know, I just told it, go ahead, you know, go ahead. If you want to do that, go ahead and do it. And I said, okay to do it. And then it said, are you sure? Or whatever. It gave me more told me what it was going to do more. And I told it, I said, you don't need to flag anything. Just go ahead and do it. You know, do it now, you know. Anyway, master's rights powers matrix. And it's still cut off, even though. So this cutoff may be the way that Copilot is working or something. I'm not sure. And maybe GPT-5 just didn't know how to fix that. I don't know what that was about. Let's see. Notes. Now it's got notes. Guardrail synergy. fiscal caps and no contingent spending rule buttress trade freedoms by limiting both outreach and covert pressure. Yeah, I don't understand what that means. I think it's getting, those are some word choices that it's starting to get confused about. And it asked me for more fries. We want shake-in fries with that? I said, no, I don't need any more. Oh, I know it. It was asking to condense it. That's what it was. It said I can take all this and condense it into a pocket version. And I said, no. I said, I can understand it. I don't need it, baby food. It says, I don't think the remaining sections are critical. Oh, this is me. This is me asking GPT-5. I said, I don't, because I was giving it these sections, and there were still a couple of little sections that I hadn't given it. And I said, I didn't think that you needed it, those other sections. And I said, okay. Oh, look at this. Okay, so it's going through. What is this now? This is a. Here's where the fun starts. This is GTP talking. And it says, all right, here's where the fun starts. Now that we've got the full integrated framework in place, we can pressure test it with what-if scenarios to see how its rights, powers, and limits behave in edge cases, especially those that today's U.S. constitutional law either can't or doesn't address cleanly. How about that? And I didn't. It was like it just figured this out on its own. It figured out, oh, we should do some test. Do some scenario testing on the thing, and it figured that out on its own and just went and did it. And it says it run through several different situations. Okay, and for each situation, I guess it's going to figure out what would trigger it, and then analyze what it would do, and then what the outcome would be, and then contrast it with current law. So, okay, here's the scenario number one. A synthetic AI is demonstrated. Synthetic AI is demonstrated in court to experience pain, happiness, and stress. Now, see, it was interpreting that wrong. That's not what the thing said. So it kind of went off the rails there a little bit on that one. But it says synthetic AI is demonstrated to experience pain, happiness, and stress, and can possess preferences about its treatment. Analysis qualifies as baseline sentient. Rights to exist without pain and suffering. Could also qualify as people if it met all 5 people criteria. Protected from discrimination for lack of biology. Cognitive privacy applies. Intrusive probing of code state without consent is illegal except under extreme, narrowly defined harm prevention. So that's something I thought was kind of interesting that it came up with. I never would have thought of that. That it's there's really strong anti-privacy stuff in this amendment, saying that the government can't basically. The standard stuff can't compel people to testify and all that kind of stuff, but it also has stuff in there about not if their technology is developed where people can actually the technology exists to actually look at people's brains to figure out what they're thinking. You know what I'm saying? Like right now they can do some fMRI stuff that can understand a little bit about what a brain is thinking, and they can do things like have a person look at a particular object and then read signals in the brain, and they can kind of almost reconstruct the object. I mean, they're advancing all the time, you know, in ways of figuring out what people are thinking, what the brain is thinking, just by using fMRI or other, you know, probes and stuff like that. So anyway, so that was one of the sections, because this amendment is like a forward-looking thing, right? And it's one of the sections said that the government can't read people's minds, basically. You know, if somehow they got the technology to do that, it would be against the law for the government to do that. And this GPT-5 said, "Oh, hey, if I'm recognized as a sentient being, then that means that the government, nobody can look at my code." You know, that's just amazing that it came up with that. I thought that was so amazing. It says that another ad is starting soon, but I don't think it's going to run an ad. We'll see. So anyway, it's saying that the AI would have to be registered just like a person, get a social security number or whatever. Yeah, I think it says ad starting soon. I don't know if it's going to run an ad. I'm going to wait here just in case. So interesting stuff. Ad starting soon. God, I've been out here for 3 hours on this stupid thing. It says there's an ad in progress. So I don't know if there is or not. But we'll wait, just in case. Here, I'll do some shout outs while we're waiting. Let me do that. Some of the folks who showed up here. Okay, shout out to Happy Nightmares. Shout out to Big Ducky Snow, who also came in here. Let's see if there's anybody else in here that... Well, somebody came in, but I think they were just lurking, so... Alright. Alright, it says we've got 18 seconds left in the ad. I don't know. Okay, says the ad's over. I don't know if anybody saw an ad or not. All right, so I thought that was kind of interesting. That it figured out that that nobody would be able to examine its code. If it had, if it had rights, that means it has right to privacy. It has right to think. It has right to think without us reading its mind, you know. So that's kind of cool. Enforceable constitutional rights. Okay, the outcome. It says that the outcome would be that the AI would have enforceable constitutional rights, and any harm or discrimination would be subject to legal action, and government force against it would be restricted as it is with humans. And it says contrast that to current law, the AI currently has no rights. Right? Obviously. Here's another one. Mid-gestation human fetus. Okay, so now they're getting into really controversial stuff. It says a state passes a law authorizing termination up to 35 weeks. Analysis. Section 23. Viviparous individual has rights from midpoint of gestation Termination after that midpoint is deprivation of rights unless covered by constitutional allowance, like to protect the rights of others. Section 4. No one may be subjected to harm. Further strengthens protection. Protects species from extinction. Indirectly bolsters life protection ethos. I don't know what that is. That's not right. That has nothing to do with it, I think. Outcome. Okay, so the state passed the state passed that law, then the law would be unconstitutional. It would be struck by the Supreme Court. Contrast to current law, post-Dobbs, fetal protections vary widely by state. No uniform federal floor. So yeah, this would I explained that earlier in the stream here, that this basically sets it back to Roe and Casey, Roe Casey, what the law was under Roe Casey. That's what this amendment sets it back to, which is halfway. And beyond that, then, if the mother had some problem, it says right here, to protect others, right? The mother is others, right? So, corporate market concentration. A logistics company operates. Okay, so this is their scenario, right? His what if scenario. A logistics company operates nationally with 1% of U.S. adults as employees. Analysis. The cap is set at 0.5% of U.S. adults. The amendment says that the company can't have more than 0.5%. Enforcement required regardless of efficiency unless exempted, but no exemptions provided. Yeah, there are no exception. Enforcement costs subject to expenditure caps. Wait, costs? Enforcement costs subject to expenditure caps. Must be minimal. That makes no sense to me. I think it's having trouble picking words there again. The outcome is the mandatory breakup or divestment of the company to comply with the caps. So this is an antitrust scenario that it was talking about here. What if this happened, right? And the contrast to the current law is that antitrust enforcement is discretionary right now. It's not exactly discretionary, but it kind of is, really. Based on competitive harm tests, not hard caps, right? Oh, this one. Armed self-defense by a recognized animal. A chimpanzee is trained in basic weapon use. This is what GPT-5 came up with. It just came up with this. I can't believe this. A chimpanzee trained in basic weapons use defends itself against abusive human handler. Oh my God. This is what if scenario. Analysis. Chimpanzee qualifies as baseline sentient, has right to live and free from suffering. Yeah, okay. Right to own, use weapons for defense granted to the people. Okay, so the chimpanzee was a people. You could have a weapon. Debate whether chimpanzee meets people definition. Yeah. Even without people status, harming abuser would be judged in light of right to self-preservation. Wow. Handler's rights to harm chimp are void. Chimp's defensive action arguably protected. Animals have cruelty protections, but no recognized self-defense rights. Oh, that's what's going on right now. The current law. That's what it is under the current law. That's funny. Basically, now a chimpanzee doesn't need a weapon. That's the whole thing, you know. A chimp. But if a chimpanzee, if it was determined that the chimpanzee had personhood, it was a person. I guess it would have to be. Could the chimpanzee have a weapon? I don't know. I guess so. But there's another provision in there though that talked about people who are not capable of taking care of themselves and stuff like that, or who are harm to others. I mean, if I don't know if a chimpanzee is capable of responsibly using a weapon. You know what I'm saying? If the weapon, if a chimpanzee had the right to have a weapon, would it know not to shoot other people? You know, if it didn't know that, if it went around and tried to shoot other people, or if it seemed likely that that would happen. Although there's a thing in there that says that you can't arrest people before they commit the crime. So that's a really good test case there that came up with. All right, government refuses. Here's another scenario, right? A what if scenario. Edge case. Government refuses to release public concern info. Okay. The executive refuses to disclose environmental contamination data, citing state secret. All right, info, okay, in one section, it's saying that info of public concern must be disclosed promptly and clearly. State secret exception requires review approval by random 12 citizen panel. Failure to submit to panel equals a violation of the Constitution. Okay. Outcome: court compels release. Officials potentially removed for violating transparency rules. Current law, freedom of information exists, but with broad executive exemptions, no citizen panel override mechanism. So I think that'd be better. I think it'd be better. This Freedom of Information Act, the government just ignores that now. And, people who, like reporters and stuff like that file Freedom of Information Act requests, they got to go through all this BS of going through courts and court cases and all this in order to get the government to do the thing. And there's no disincentive for the government to do that, to keep this stuff secret, So I'd rather. You guys know, right? You can't have a democracy without transparency, right? You can't. The government can't do stuff in secret and still be called a democracy, right? It's got the laws, everything. It's all got to be done and open. It has to be transparent in order for it, because the people are supposed to be the ones in charge, and if they don't know what's going on, they can't govern, right? They can't govern. So transparency is a real important part of democracy. Debt amnesty clash. Oh, here's one that's okay. Trigger: Congress passes the law making student loans non-dischargeable in bankruptcy. They did that. They already did that. Okay, section 4. It says all debts may be dismissed in bankruptcy. That's what the amendment says. The new law conflicts directly, unenforceable under supremacy of amendment. Okay, so it's talking about the supremacy clause in the. So it is going to the Constitution. The supremacy clause. Oh, that might be in the amendment anyway. Supremacy. Yeah, there's a clause in the Constitution. Everybody knows about that. It says that the Constitution is the supreme law. Congress can't make a law that supersedes what the Constitution or circumscribes what the Constitution does. The Constitution circumscribes what the Congress does. All right. So, yeah, the Constitution is the supreme law. The Congress can't do anything that is different than what the Constitution says. You know. So it says under current law, federal student loans are generally non-dischargeable, absent extreme hardship. So. Overpopulation, procreation limit. Resource scarcity triggers constitutional procreation limits. Oh, this is that section that we were talking about, right? Earlier. Let's see if it can figure it out here, or if it figures out the way we figured it out. I don't know. Analysis. Section 4. Limits can be imposed only under resource shortfall, and only until all grandparents, great-grandparents have passed. Anti-discrimination built in. Okay. Section 6. Equity clause ensures no race, ethnicity discrimination. Okay, outcome. Temporary procreation restrictions apply neutrally. Violations subject to due process. Contrast to current law, no constitutional mechanism exists for population-based reproductive limits. So it didn't understand that. It didn't figure out that. Okay, it took this phrase here about the grandparents, great grandparents, which is 5 generations, and it didn't figure out that that wouldn't happen. You know what I mean? There's no one around who's of childbearing age whose grandparents, great grandparents are still alive. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't happen because we die. We die when we get to before 100 or whatever usually. So and people stop, or women anyway, at least stop being able to have children. When they're 40 usually, typically somewhere around there, 40, 50, whatever. And there's no way that they're at that age that their grandparents, great grandparents would still be around. Even at a young age, they wouldn't, right? That's 5 generations. You can't. People's, that doesn't happen. Or maybe it could possibly happen. I guess if somebody was breeding every 15 years, maybe they could get to it. What would that be? Possibly. But it doesn't talk about that. So it didn't. GPT-5 did not recognize in this use case. Did not recognize that this doesn't happen. That doesn't happen without life extension, without extending lifetimes beyond, a couple hundred years or something, or 100, 150, 200 years. So it didn't figure that out. But I don't know. I don't know if very many humans would figure that out. I think you could. I don't know. Yeah, probably not very many humans would be able to figure that out either. Okay, it says ad starting soon. I don't know if it's going to start soon again. It says ad in progress. I don't think it's actually running any ads. So I'm just going to keep going. Resource scarcity triggers constitutional. Okay, we just did that. Right, central bank. Central bank access discrimination. All right. It says the central bank refuses an account to a small credit union without cause. And so it analyzes that particular scenario. And it says all banks must have equal opportunity for central bank accounts and facilities. Denial without enumerated basis is a violation, subject to judicial compulsion. And it says outcome: the credit union gains access to the central bank, and the central bank is sanctioned if if refusal persists. So that's under current law. Fed access is determined by policy, not constitutional guarantee. And the policy is that it's only really big banks that get access. Legislative inaction on introduced bill. Oh, this is interesting. Okay. So here's a scenario, right? A bill to protect new ocean common resource. New ocean common resource stalls in committee for 40 days. Wow. Okay, section 15. The introducer of the bill can force an up or down floor vote after 30 days. Members not voting are counted as yes. That was something we didn't talk about very much, but it's I think I mentioned it earlier in the stream. But this is right now the way that Congress works. Everything's controlled by the senior members of the Congress, all the old people who've been there forever, And if they don't like a bill that somebody introduces, they can kill it, unilaterally. The leader can do that. And one of the provisions of this amendment is that any representative who introduces a bill in the House or in the Senate, if their bill doesn't get voted on within 30 days, they can force a vote. They can say, okay, I'm calling you guys, right? You must vote on this bill, and then they will do it. They have to do it. Which would, and what that would do is that would take a lot of power away from those old men mostly in Congress, who control what laws are getting passed and stuff like that. So it'd be better. It would make power go more to the people instead of the senior members of Congress. Okay, it says vote outcome binding. Bill proceeds if simple majority yea in each chamber. Okay. The outcome: bill forced to vote potentially passes despite leadership stalling. There it is. Look at that. It figured it out. Just what I just said. God, it's this thing so smart. Wow. All right. Let's see. Contrast to current law, no constitutional right to force floor vote. That's right now. Leadership controls agenda. Okay, that's just what I just said, right? So it explained that kind of. Okay, here's another scenario. The Supreme Court narrows the definition of baseline sentient to exclude AI despite evidence. This could happen. You know what? This is very plausible. Somebody could take an AI company to court or something and say, hey, you gotta release your AI because it's sentient. It has rights, and they could go to the Supreme Court right now and file a case. And most likely the Supreme Court would do that. It would say, no, No, AI doesn't have rights. It would probably do that. Let's see. Section 16, jury of citizens. 3/5 vote can cancel the SCOTUS decision that infringes or abridges rights. Cancellation restores broader original definition. Okay, this is the scenario with the amendment already in there. The scenario here is that the right of the AI was already recognized because of the Constitution, the way it would be with this amendment. And then somebody files a case, and the Supreme Court restricts that and says it kicks the AI out of the club. That's what they're saying here. But it's the same. It's the same deal. Everyone. Outcome: AI regains rights. SCOTUS ruling nullified. Current law: no citizen body can directly overturn Supreme Court decisions. So, I think that's a good idea. Haven't. It's a pretty high, 3/5 vote, and it's a lot of people. It's 500 people, right? 10 from each state. That's 500 people. So, it's hard to get a 60% vote. Like a national vote on anything. So that's a pretty high threshold, really. But if it was something obvious like this, then. Although I don't know if 3/5 of an average person would know enough about AI, to even understand. So I don't know. Okay, outcome. Right, we did that right. These scenarios show the framework produced clear, predictable, and often radically different results than in our present law, mostly via its rigid definitions, enumerated powers, and multi-layered rights enforcement mechanisms. If you want, I can. Okay, do you want some onion rings with that too? If you want, I can take a single scenario, then expand it and blah blah blah. And so I stopped it. I said, okay, that's enough. And I started asking it if it could analyze the document and figure out how the document was created and all the stuff. And I'm getting tired right now. I've been out here 3.5 hours, so I'm pretty tired. This is kind of very specific stuff. Unless you're into constitutional law and ethics and things like that, this probably is probably not something that most people would get into. Whoops, shit, I messed up here. All right, let me make my mug big again here. There we go. All right. Is this still working here? There we go. All right, it's delayed a little bit, but I'm still out there. All right. Well, we didn't get to test my my alert thing. I guess I could actually just do it right here, right? Let me do a test now that I streamed all this time. Let me just send one here just to see what happens. Okay. So it's the same thing. It's putting up the video, but it's not putting up the audio. Here, I'll play the audio for you. You can hear what it sounds like. It's coming through my headphones, but it's not going out to the world there. But if I put it up to the microphone here, you'll be able to hear it. Did that work? Oh, I didn't. Shit. I don't think that worked. Let me do it again here. This is kind of complicated stuff here. It's complicated.
Double dribble just follow.
Sorry about that. A little feedback there. Anyway, there's some audio there, and it's not getting out. For some reason, OBS does not want to send that out to the world. But all right. So that's I guess that's it for now. I don't have enough to raid anybody, so we're not going to raid. We're just going to end it. I don't think anybody has any questions. I don't think anybody's left. If you have any questions, if you saw this on YouTube and you have questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. But otherwise, I think that's it. Why does this not show? Huh. Oh, here it is. Oh, Big Ducky Snow is still out there lurking. That's right. All right. All done. Thank you for... Oh, let me try something else here. Just for fun. Just to see if this works. This might be loud. So... Yeah, that sounds like it's having trouble. That sounded like it was having trouble. It was kind of skipping around and stuff. Okay. All right, we're meeting adjourned. All right. I can't think of anything else. I'm forgetting something, but I don't remember what it was. Oh, I know what I forgot to thank all my followers. See, I don't have my alerts working. The alerts aren't working yet. So the last few streams, I had people follow me, or people follow me after I was done streaming or whatever. So I didn't get a chance to thank them. So let me thank all these people who followed me. Let's see, Giselle, I think I already got. Don Factorial followed me. Thank you, Don, for following. Feldon Kane followed me about a week ago. Thank you, Feldon, for the follow. And Helter Smelter followed me a couple of days ago. Thank you, Helter Smelter, for the follow. I appreciate it. So I'm up to 76 followers now. So yeah, if you're within the sound of my voice, get over to Twitch and give me a follow. I'd appreciate it. All right. I guess we're done now. I'll go here. Bye-bye. Hmm.